Gabriela is going to have a presentation on coffee. So let's give her a hand, please. Okay, let's hear it. I'm in the back.
Hello everyone, my name is Gabriela Camacho. This presentation is all about coffee. I'll be talking about the plant, the tree, where the coffee bean came from, the whole process of it, the historical becomings of the coffee into spreading into the whole wide world. As well, I'll be explaining much more in depth about caffeine and the effects on the population. Especially, I'll be integrating a survey that was put in place last month for you guys to take, so it could be much more interactive and a little bit personal, so you guys can get a little bit of information for you guys. Starting off, the plant and production. Over here we have the coffee plant. It has a variety of ways of it. It can be either from a bush or a tree. It could be from a single stem, or it can come in bunches. But generally it kind of looks like this. This is a church coffee, and here is where the coffee beans are. And this specific plant is from the Arabica, and that is the most popular one in the market. Explaining the origins of this coffee is kind of tricky. Like the cocoa and eventually the tea I'll be explaining. There's many places that could grow stuff, but the most important part that I'll be focusing on is in Ethiopia and the southern Arabian Peninsula that are the most important parts. From the Ethiopia, when it was discovered, they used a legend, the legend of the Keldi, the goat herder. This Keldi was a goat herder that, as usual, would take care of his goats, have them in their pastures and such. But one day, he noticed that his goats were very energized, very fast, very full of energy. He went into the pastures to see what was going on. And then he came up to a bush that was full of the cherry beets, coffee beets. He noticed that the goats were eating a ton of them, and as curiosity got to him, he also tried it and saw that he also had the same effects as the goats. And that's the end. And the southern Arabian Peninsula, that's one point because that's where the market began for the coffee beans and such. As well, the development of how we process it and how we curate them. For jumping into right now into today's market, most of the coffee production is mostly on the valley equator or a little bit lower because of the temperature that is ideal for the production of it. Okay, explain my work about coffee. Again, there's a ton of varieties of coffee beans, but I'll be focused on these four families as they're the most relevant or much more popular ones. The Arabica is the most popular one, but it's much more expensive than the rest, as is that it's very fragile to the environment and can be very sensitive on how they harvest it. So that leads to their much more expensive price tag. Then there's the Robusta, that's the second most popular, but it's much more economical than the Arabica, as it's much more resilient to the environment and and the harvest. Third one is the Liberica. That one is much more harder to find, and what differentiates is the shape of the beans, as it's much more larger and irregular as the other ones. The next one, Excelsa, it's a little bit tricky because recently it's kind of joined into the Liberica family, but still it has those points that it grows mostly on the southeastern Asia parts, as it's much more hard to find as well. But you know the process of how to create coffee, it starts from the roasting the beans. As it starts out gray, as naturally as found, they keep roasting to the ideal color that they want to. Usually it goes from light bitterness to more bitterness, as well as it depends on how caffeinated the bean comes out. As well, they usually grind it out depending on what type of coffee that you guys want. It goes from extra fine to extra coarse. Usually, medium goes from drips. Fine, it goes to espressos, as it's much more easier. And coarse is much more for cold brews and such. As well, basically coffee is the main source of where the source is caffeine, vitamin B12, and magnesium. And if you were wondering how they make it, the caffeinated beans, at the beginning of the process, they apply chemical solvent or carbon dioxide gas before they start doing their whole process. And the only way that they can be decaffeinated if it removes the 97% of the caffeine on it.
I have a question.
Hmm?
Do you know how they decaffeinate it? I was always wondering. If you don't know, that's fine, but I'm just curious.
No, like I said before, they apply the chemical solvent or the carbon dioxide gas. I'm not sure how specifically. They do it before they do the whole process. Like I said, they start out by soaking the beans. They roast it, and then they grind it. It all starts just before all starts.
So it's before it's roasted?
Yes.
Huh. But it's still green?
Mm-hmm. It's still green.
Does it need to be fresh or not?
Yes, it has to be fresh.
Thank you.
Okay, a little bit about caffeine. Caffeine is the most common psychostimulant. The second one is nicotine. If you guys didn't know, but the psychostimulant is a chemical that promotes a temporary boost to physical and or mental functions. Sorry, I can't pronounce this. 137 trimethylcentine. That's the closest thing. This mostly affects the central nervous system. It enhances arousal, vigilance, and reduces fatigue. That's what makes you less sleepy or less tired. And the whole process of how you goes into it, mostly it goes to the stomach, and what is left, it goes to the liver and kidneys to process and metabolize all the chemicals of the caffeine. If you guys didn't know, is that you can feel tolerance when taken regularly, but you can experience withdrawal symptoms when stopping, depending on how how broad you're on coffee. As well, the daily recommended intake is for healthy adults 400 milligrams. Pregnant people, so no more than 200 milligrams. Anything above it will start affecting the baby, as the baby will mostly going to get the chemical part of the caffeine. And as well as usually,
I was wondering, could a baby get addicted to caffeine while still in the womb?
they're more they're more likely to be addicted, not necessarily when they're as well. It's not really recommended if the kids under 12 and under to give caffeine, as it really affects their growth spurts. As you can see it myself. Yeah. As well, they can develop some mental difficulties as well later on in life. A little bit is to show how caffeine intake and like how much it is in our beverages. Here's it comes from coffee, different types, to tea, there's the cocoa, and there's a chocolate, so surprisingly 20 milligrams and such. As you can see, as the tea could be is usually the highest, but eventually is energy drinks, energy shots that usually are like around 300 milligrams. Sadly, as we can see here. Here is a website. Oh wait. Here is a website that you can see all sorts of beverages that it's measured by the food ounces, calories, and milligrams of caffeine that you want to.
Can you tell us how much a can of Coke and Pepsi has caffeine in it?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
There's the Coca-Cola caffeine free cereal. There's the classic 34.
Classic one.
Yeah. The classic one is 34 milligrams.
34 milligrams of caffeine?
Yes, for 12 fluid ounces.
For how many ounces?
12.
12 ounces. How
Yeah.
about Pepsi?
Pepsi. Oh, here. 38.
Okay.
I'm tired.
Yep, and how about this energy drink, which I see everyone drinking, this Monster?
Oh no, call it out.
No, that's the other one.
God,
160.
Yep.
Actually, it also measures by the highest to lowest. The lowest energy drink is 0, but usually when something is low in caffeine, it's very high on sugar.
Yeah,
So
yes.
you have
How
to
about
look at
Red Bull?
Red Bull.
Oh God, no.
Oh.
Okay, that's not bad.
How? I cannot see.
I just want to coffee. It's like the 7-Eleven, 280.
Yo.
Café con leche, 154.
Not one of them.
CBD
coffee.
Chick-fil-A.
Yes, it has every sort of thing. Sodas, energy drinks, teas, all sorts of things.
What's the name of the page?
It's called Caffeine Informer.
Thank you.
Just one more question. How about Pete's coffee? That thing gives me.
Pete's Coffee?
Oh,
Pete's.
okay.
P.
I heard something else.
Yeah, it has a very
Two
very
E's.
dark and
Yeah.
Pete's. P-E.
No.
Double E in the beginning.
Yes.
No.
We're
No.
on teas right now.
But you're in the tea section, so that's why you can see.
You guys can see over.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Oh.
Dang. That and then I'm not.
Oh my God. A service 30?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Really?
I love Slurpees.
I love
Oh, bro. Oh, I knew it. 257.
267.
Dang.
That's a lot.
I feel like I would die.
Yeah, you can, I can do this from that one, like up to 3 normal copies.
Yeah, I highly recommend going to the site if you're looking for any alternatives on where you guys want to drink and such, because it does bring a ton of variety of places, such as at the convenience stores, typical as the coffee shops and such. If there's anything missing, you can submit to them as the information source, and they will add it in. So yeah, that's the let you guys know how much you might be drinking. And the reason I want to bring that into mind is about this. I want to show the timeline of how people's coffee consumption has changed. As easily as the tea in China from 207 to 9 BCE, before Common Era. Again, there's still discussion of what time and what country, as there's some doubts if tea originated from China. Still, there's some historical evidence of tea consumption there. And there increases with the coffee foundation, founding from Ethiopia and the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. They were I would say, the masterminds on coffee from the 9th to 10th century until later into 14th to 16th century. They started to develop as much more of the process of coffee, because before they would just boil the beans. Here is the mostly from the South Arabian Peninsula. They came up to roasting and grinding the beans. As well, they become much more knowledgeable of the effects of what coffee and caffeine do to regular human being. Later on, with the trades and into the 17th century, coffee introduced to the Arabs as the Arabian Peninsula started trading with the European countries, and there it started to go to the colonies of the Americas. And at that point, that's when the coffee became mainstream towards a huge part of the world. And so that's where the point that the caffeine intake was increased as well. And later, we go into the late 1800s when the introduction of soda goes into the market. So it has an interesting history, as it kind of was discovered early on into the 1800s, but however, it was just an accident from the scientists as they were trying to make mineral water, but it just came out to the carbonated water for them, and it tasted disgusting for them. So they, throughout the years, they started other methods on making it, as they adding flavorings, fruits, or certain things, so the flavor could be better, and it was sold into the market in the late 1800s, and that's where, and that increasingly as it became much more popular, but by the highest point it was by the mid 2000s, and at that point as well, that's where as well there was a shift, that there was a decrease of caffeine intake as well. And then we go to the 2000s, that energy drinks become mainstream. As again, energy drinks was kind of discovered by 1960s in Japan as they figured out how to make energy drinks, but it became much more, it came into the market much more into the early 2000s for them. And right now, by the 2000s, there's a shift as it increases and decreases as trends goes for every year. Okay, I'll be explaining a little bit about the survey. So overall, the survey is 23 questions. It goes into general information, coffee preferences, habits, and other sort of things that will relate to your guys' coffee consumptions. I got 150 responses, and so there's 3 main sections to go by. To introduce the survey, one of the biggest things that I found out when I got the results is generations. I'll explain that later. So, the biggest thing that I found in the survey was there was a difference in generations, mostly separated from the before in 1980s to the 2000s, well, with the other group beginning in 2001 to 2010. Mostly kind of because of the large amounts that it is. As well, there's significant, in certain questions, there are significant points that there's a clear difference on generation gaps that shows a slight difference in how they responses. Such as in their early generations, there's a large preferences for strong coffee. They're much more likely to switch to alternative drinks, much more to matcha and green tea, but they still were a little bit open to other options. From where it goes, from what they must drink to, is coffee, layer tea, layer energy drink, and layer soda on top of their main caffeinated beverages. As well, they're more likely to drink normally 2 to 3 caffeinated drinks. And as you see from the generation from now, is that there's some difference. As such as that there's a huge preference towards cold coffee, slightly they slightly decide to switch to alternative drinks, and the main thing was matcha for them. Their main preferences were coffee, equally tea, and soft drinks, and their energy drinks. As well, they're likely to normally drink 1 caffeinated drink per day as well. That was one of the few things that I noticed, but there are a few silly things for us that we were more likely to start drinking caffeinated drinks by 11 to 16. That was the largest percentage for both groups. As well as that we were more likely to drink in the morning. The second option was the job of the day. But something specific that I noticed from the 1980s to the 1990s, the oldest generation there, is that they're more likely to see a ritual in their coffee drinking habits as well. They're more likely to distress by drinking coffee as well. There's some points I will disclaim that it's something that's what I saw in the survey, but it's something to point out. So again, temperature preferences, there's a big difference. The most likely to prefer cold were Hispanics, whites, African Americans, and their Native Americans, while the hot was Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. As well, overall alternatives from all groups, it was matcha green tea and matcha green and black tea, no matter what, in that order. But however, Hispanics are much more open to um, supplements and detox teas, or any such alternative, less decaffeinated. And then for red people, it was kombucha, and their Asian American was ginger and turmeric, as well as some herbal teas as well. There's a specific question on the last question that was talking about relieving stress. It was either yes, no, or yes, but with a company of others familiar with. And one thing that I noticed from gender specifically, females were more likely to agree company of others, as they would see it much more relieving the stress, as well as that they're much more social than males in a coffee environment. Either way, that there's a little bit of slight decrease on caffeine intake on recent generations or recent times. I still want you guys to know about the side effects on caffeine mostly. Mainly is that, as you can see, it can highly impact several things in our bodies, as the opinion of how much you drink. It's highly, as that you guys remember, as that you guys should be drinking about 400 milligrams. You can't go overboard, as it can slowly affect you, such as when you see on the graph here that was taken from the survey. Other than that, is that you're most likely going to be shaking hands, as well. You can see trembling, twitching, headaches, you can see confusion, mood swings, central. You can experience the rapid heartbeats, the irregular rhythms, heart palpitations. That could be dangerous for every one of us. A little bit of advice on how to regulate caffeine if you're having any troubles. Cut back gradually. It's very hard to stop for all of it, so it's much more easier for yourself, mentally and physically, to just slowly cut back on it too. As well, look for alternatives such as herbals, less caffeinated drinks, or decaf as well. As well, it helps as to keeping track of your guys' intake on what you guys eat, drink and eat as well. Don't forget that there's food related that have caffeine in it. As well, be careful on the medicine that you take. Some medicine can have caffeine and could be are very high in caffeine, so it can easily affect yourself if you don't check yourself. Last thing, this just part, caffeine intoxication or overdose. If you're consuming over 5 grams, if you're consuming like 1 gram, you're being risky. You're going through. There's still a chance of having a little bit of side effects or other side effects than normally. And if you go starting up until 5 grams, that's where you need hospitalization. before going even further that by the 10 gram, that's where it could be fatal. Still, it's very rare to overdose, as how much is that you need to take caffeine for order to do so. But is that although intentionally overdosed by medication, mainly, and there's a thing called caffeine suicide that again is very rare, but it can happen to people. As well, there's recent news as you might hear about the 21-year-old that died last October by the Panera charged lemonade that was accidentally that accidentally died. As well, there's another case from last March. Anthony, he was 29. He died of a cardiac arrest as he accidentally intake five. Well, it was tricky. It was like 5 grams of supplements, as he was very much as the health conscious, but accidentally overtook his supplements. And the autopsy, it came out that in his blood system there was 392 milligrams per liter in his blood. And that was the main cause of the cardiac arrest. Also, treatment caused accidentally by ingestion. Again, there's rarely fatality for children, as they easily can be taken to the hospital and be taken care of. So there's a low number of fatalities overall, and it mostly depends on how quickly they're treated, as time is endless, as how fast they get treated, as they get the most is getting hydrated. That will help them as they recover. As well, how early it goes is that they usually give them activated carbon, yes, to help them out. But eventually, as it goes further, is they usually have to give them beta blockers that would manage their heart rhythms. And if it goes much more deeper or much more later, it goes to hemodialysis. That's the dialysis of the kidneys. As well, they have to go to the cardiology to check on the heart as well. As well, as it goes, the main thing of complications is seizures. That's the most common. Even as like early on, it's like even as early, not early, small dosage of caffeine. There could be neurological changes, hypokalemia. That is the when the person has low potassium in their system, and hyperglycemia. Sorry, that's where they have high blood glucose. But when it goes to severe cases, they're more likely to experience acute kidney injuries, rhabdomyolysis, sorry. That's where there's damage on the tissues, muscles, that could affect the heart and kidneys, and it can cause the person to be permanently disabled. As well, eventually, as I told before, Anthony, is they can cause to cardiac arrest. So that's why, as mentioned before, with the advice, I would like you guys to take notice of your guys' caffeine intake. As I noticed as well, the highest caffeinated drinks that you guys will do is around 150 and more milligrams. And can be easily unnoticeable as to your guys' habit towards it. And
Any questions?
So now that you know the effects that an overdose of caffeine has in the body, do you think, in your personal opinion, that beverages that have caffeine should have a warning or should be restricted?
Yes, I do think it's that we need some kind of warning because we not without thinking, we just drink instead of ton of caffeinated drinks, and even instead caffeinated food as well that we don't even think about or notice.
Sorry. Can you give me an example of like a caffeinated food? It's just not something we really think about.
Well, it's the most biggest thing is like chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. There's some fruits, some nuts, I think, that have some caffeine in it. It's still small amounts compared to drink, but yeah.
I heard like a rumor where certain coffee makers feed coffee to elephants, and when they pass it through, it makes the coffee more richer. Was I pranked, or was it something you heard of?
I heard about it.
There's a similar thing. I'm not sure about the elephants, but there's a similar thing with a young cat. That's the most highest expensive one as in the market. And right now there's a little bit of protest against it, as they're talking about how unethical is that they keep the animals for the whole thing to make the beans of it.
So I'm guessing like the coffee beans aren't digestible? Is that how they get like the coffee beans from the defecation, to say?
I forgot the science of it. Sorry, but
That's cool.
it still has some caffeine in it on the beans. Like it's a weird process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, real.
Yes.
I have two questions, but yeah. No, you can go.
Is there a known reason for caffeine causing growth issues, like a lack of sleep or something?
It's usually it's a lack of sleep effects on the diet of the person as well. Usually it's oftentimes they will eat less, and that will cause a lack of nutrition that would not help them develop the stature.
So it's not necessarily the coffee itself, it's its effects.
Yes, it affects it. Yes.
How bad is it to like drink coffee right after you wake up?
It's kind of bad. It's not recommended because it's like you yourself said your body needs to do it yourself, energize yourself. Because if you become reliant if you start creating that habit of waking up and just drinking a cup of coffee right after.
Yeah. And do you know if there's like any memory implications to like coffee consumption when it's like, you know, too much? Does it affect your memory?
It basically affects your neurological as the first, but it could be many factors depending on the person.
Is there a difference between the caffeine in energy drinks and coffee?
I'm not sure. as well as that, what makes it a little bit unhealthy for us on drinks is just the combination of caffeine and sugar, and that creates a whole dependency on each other. As I want to mention as well, addiction with coffee being very integrated with addiction with nicotine and smoking, as it's very connected to each other. There's been a little bit of studies of it. There isn't much things in common except that they recently found out that people that are heavy drinkers, caffeine drinkers, and heavy smokers, they have a harder time as they quitting each other, as it creates such a great dependency on it.
So like, let's say I was addicted to smoking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could I try to like wean off of like smoking by transitioning over to like caffeine? Would it still like trigger the same?
No.
Okay, real. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it like replace it.
Because
I don't know.
the smoking helps the break down the caffeine.
Mhm.
So it's
Oh, is that why they drink it and then like they smoke, like, you know, like those indie kids?
yeah.
Okay, real sorry.
Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm very curious about this. I never looked into this. Okay, so when they start, maybe you run across this, maybe you haven't. So if you haven't, that's okay. Maybe someone else knows. So original Coca-Cola was made with Coca-Cola. I'm curious if they replaced Coca with caffeine, or they just, originally there was Coca and caffeine, and they just pushed up the amount of caffeine in Coca-Cola in order to arrive at heavily addictive drink that we have today.
I looked a little
Or
bit.
less addictive than it was before.
I looked into a little bit of the history of Coca-Cola. At the starting part, it was just a bunch of changes into the recipe of the Coke. At one point, it did have cocaine on it.
Right,
effects.
once they removed the cocaine, the question was, did they add more caffeine, or once they removed Coca?
Yeah. Yeah. I believe. I'm not sure,
Okay,
but
does anyone else knows? Yes.
I don't know, but I have a theory. I think they added more sugar because.
yeah, I was going to say it's a
yeah,
combination of coffee and sugar.
So I think.
Right, but they added more caffeine, or the caffeine remained the same, or once they removed Coca, they needed to add caffeine?
I think they didn't add more caffeine. I think they added more sugar.
Yeah, sugar is addictive as caffeine, more addictive than
Yes,
coffee.
I think that is what made it more addictive.
Yes. Sugar is 7 times more addictive than coffee, guys, than cocaine.
Yeah, because
Yes, that is my theory.
yeah, because when they needed to take out the cocaine, they needed to still for the Coke to have the same effects as before.
Or similar, yes.
Yes.
Anyone else, any questions?
No.
Well, thank you, that was an excellent presentation.